it's Cindy from Edmonton Graphic Designer. Today we're going to interview a Calgarian, and his name is Andrew Glubrecht, and he's going to share with us about his company called weVectr. He's going to tell us about what he does and who he works with, and I'm pretty excited to get to know Andrew a little bit more.
My name is Andrew Glubrecht. I've been in the large format printing industry for over 8 years. I was the art department manager at the company that I worked for. I had been managing a team of 4 individuals for a number of years. So I pretty much worked on just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of projects. So I've worked on everything from like vehicle wraps to large banners to wall murals to large scale projects that are encompassing a lot of the city. It's kind of funny when I go downtown Calgary, like, oh, I touched that, oh, I touched that, oh, I touched that.
Wow.
So I've definitely had a lot of different experiences while I've been in the industry, and I've really enjoyed it. Honestly, it's one of those things that's funny because as a kid, I was always super artistic. And so I always wanted to be like an illustrator or a drawer, which I still do very passionately as a hobby, but I'd never expect it to quite lead me to graphic design and into the signage world and all those sort of things. So, but I did find a passion with it still. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. So you said signage. Are you specific to large scale projects, or what are some smaller ones that if people are interested, they could reach out to you?
Yeah. Obviously I specialized in large format, but that didn't mean that we didn't often get other types of things. And the freelancing that I have done on the side, even prior to me jumping full force into this, I did a lot of like branding design and brochures and postcards and business cards and that sort of thing. One of the cool projects that I did once, the Chestermere police department, they were doing a bunch of stuff for their security program. I was a voluntary security program. So I did all of the brochures and flyers and business cards and stuff for that. So that was one of the more cooler recent projects that I got to do before I left my place of employment. So I really enjoyed that project. So
nice.
Yeah.
Did you get to go meet them in person to gather information?
So that was the challenging part of me moving to freelance, is I didn't have to worry about all that stuff before. I had sales reps that I worked very closely with. So they were the face often dealing with the clients. So now it's been a challenge for me because going from a background guy to now in the forefront talking with people like you and other customers and stuff like that, it's been a learning curve for me.
Well, that just helps us all have to grow. It forces us to grow, right?
Definitely.
Puts us in a bit of an uncomfortable situation, but that's where we grow.
Yeah, and that's one of the exciting things about this. So as I had mentioned to you in the background before, like I've been just started my freelancing career full time in April. So a huge part of why I wanted to do this in freelance and not just look for another job, because I mean I could have easily done that. I wanted the growth opportunity. I wanted to be able to see different avenues of business that I had not yet explored. So I knew I had the skills as a designer and I enjoyed designing, but really ultimately the whole goal of it is to grow and learn as a business owner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. So I had previously sent you a list of questions that I wanted to discuss.
You bet,
So you're okay if we go through them and you can just reiterate what you said to me.
Yeah, we'll see how close I remember to everything I said to you.
Well, if it's the truth, then it'll be pretty close, eh? Okay. How about what's the name of your business? And how did you come up with that name?
So my business name is weVectr Design. The way I came up with the name, originally what I was doing as freelancing was developing and designing vector graphics and assets for companies. So I would take like if they had a really old logo and the only thing that they had was a low quality version of the logo, I would then convert that into a vector format. So that's where weVectr came from. The whole idea and the premise of it was that design with simplicity and scalability. So like a vector file can be scaled infinitely, right? As you know, and the whole idea is that it's a lightweight file. It's not super heavy. So I wanted my whole business model to be around that, lightweight and scalable, easy for designers and customers to use as a service. So, and that's kind of where that whole premise of that business name came from.
I'd like to focus on something that is common sense to you and me,
Yeah,
and
you bet.
anybody in the graphics industry, but business owners and non-graphic designers would not understand this. So when you take like a JPEG file or a PNG file or whatever, and you said convert it to vector,
Yeah.
number one, tell us what that actually means. It doesn't mean snapping your fingers and it's a vector. You have to actually redraw it, right?
Yes,
In
correct.
a
Yeah.
different format that saves it. Give us some more information there.
Yeah, so the vector files, for anyone who's not familiar, there's a lot of different file formats. Obviously, a lot of people are familiar with JPEGs or GIFs because you see those little animation memes and stuff on the internet. But a vector file is essentially a file that is built with nodes and paths. So what that means is that it doesn't actually store raster image data, which is essentially any image you would see as a JPEG or anything like that, which is made up of pixels. Pixels can only be scaled up so much. So in my world, when it was a large format and you wanted a photo that you took blown up to the size of a wall, there's limitations there because it's built with pixels. And so that's something that a vector has an advantage to. It can be scaled infinitely because it's not based on pixels. It's based on nodes and paths, which that data can be then expanded to any size that you so wish, as long as your computer can process it.
Right.
So the advantage of having a logo in a vector format is that you can then use those for projects without losing quality. If it's something on a website, it's not as critical, but even these days, you can actually utilize vector graphics on websites. And that's what I usually aim to do when I do a web design. The reason for that is because there's so many platforms now, as you know. There's cell phones, there's like computers, there's tablets, there's laptops. Like every screen size is different. And so by having your logo as a vector format, even on a website these days, can allow it to dynamically change size without it losing quality. So that's what I aim to do with businesses who need that type of service to convert stuff to vectors. That gives them so much flexibility when it comes to printing or web format, anything really.
Or even a large screen TV that they're doing a presentation on.
Exactly. And so like, obviously that's applicable to even beyond just the logo. That's applied to any kind of graphical element that you could use, whether that be for presentations or advertising and those sort of things. So that's essentially my expertise. So I started out as a print operator actually, and I worked my way up to art management within a couple of years of being at the company. So so it was a fast transition. I'd always wanted to be into the graphics side of things, so that was really exciting when I had that opportunity. I used the printing obviously to get into the door and kind of get into the industry. Since I had no prior experience, I didn't actually go to school to learn graphic design. I'm all self-taught and that sort of thing. And so I had to kind of prove myself that I was able to do all that.
What programs were you using when you first got in?
I've always been into Adobe programs. I've always used Adobe Suites. I did actually go to school for web design. So I had gotten Illustrator and Photoshop and all that through that schooling. So that was kind of nice. I had already paid through it with my student loans, and I already had the software to kind of learn from it, right? Because I know that's the thing with Adobe, especially nowadays with the ongoing subscriptions and stuff like that. It's not the cheapest opportunity or program to use. So it makes it tough.
It's almost like you can't even. Well, I haven't looked to purchase the Adobe Suite. I have one from a few years back, but like even Adobe Acrobat DC Pro or whatever, you can't outright buy that program. You got to join a membership thing so that
I definitely don't necessarily agree with that practice for sure. It's a challenging, I think it's a wall, especially for new graphic designers. I know that you talk to a lot of new graphic designers and people who are trying to get in the industry, and I know that's a big limitation for sure. Like that's it's not always the best. Thankfully there are Corel Draw is not so bad. I think you can just buy that software, can you not? I believe it still allows you to purchase it. So I mean, there is that, which is nice. It's still a little bit of money, but at least it's a one-time thing rather than an ongoing thing. So
and your knowledge is transferable pretty much between Corel Draw and Adobe Illustrator. A little bit different.
Thankfully Corel Draw has worked a little bit hard on making sure that stuff is cross-compatible
Yeah,
with Adobe, because I know they're obviously the powerhouse in the primary program, so they've worked hard to make sure that that's the case. So that's
that's
really
good.
cool. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So what wisdom would you like to share with our viewers? And you already know that we put out a monthly marketing tips newsletter where us graphic designers will share our expertise and things that we wish that business owners might understand before they bring their job to us, to make it easier, the process easier for both of us, both the client and the graphic designer. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I think my whole thing is design with intent, right? Like the whole idea is to make sure you're doing your good research, and even asking the right people goes a long ways in making sure that information is correct. One of the things that I often share with people is that if you're approaching a printing company, let's say, and you want something printed, it's often you're dealing with a sales rep or a person who is helping you trying to sell that product. They're not the ones that necessarily know what's going on. The reality is that it's the producers, the production managers, and that type of stuff. So it's always good to ask questions if you can get a hold of an actual production professional.
Right.
That will really give you a great idea of what you should be looking at when you're talking to your designer.
Right.
I often say, like, you have to understand that everyone kind of speaks their own language a little bit. The graphic designer speaks their own language, the production facility speaks their own language, and the client speaks their own language. So it's just about really laying down the foundation of communication and making sure that that is understood on a common ground. So
Right.
it's all about asking good questions. I think that's really where it starts.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
don't be afraid to reach out to those people who at the end of the day are going to be the ones creating it for you, whether that be your designer or the
Right.
production facility at the end of the day.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very important.
Mhm.
When I was reading your notes there, I put communication is key, and there's no stupid questions, right?
No.
Yeah,
And that's the thing. I think people get scared that they're being judged because they don't know it. But that's why you're reaching out to that professional. That's the
exactly.
whole reason.
Exactly.
If you could do it yourself, you would. So don't be
Exactly.
afraid to ask the questions, and just get out there and be like, who's the best? Sorry, there's the dogs are gonna bark a little bit there. I'll just okay,
That's
there
okay.
we go. Yeah, so just make sure that you're communicating very clearly with the people that are going to help you get the project done.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Nice.
yeah.
Okay. If you could, what would you educate your target market about?
Again, I think a lot of it was the same. My goal is to help other designers. That's really at the end of the day where
Okay.
I'm hoping to help people. So I will help obviously businesses, and I'm looking forward to working with businesses. But at the end of the day, I really hope that I can educate and help other designers learn to build with intent, and that towards printing, whether that be small format or large format, or even web publishing. There's lots of nuances there as well. So my goal is to really teach people step by step and help them build strategies that can help better them and achieve those goals. Because I know that's another thing, like I see time and time again that a designer's job is usually to be the brainstormer and the visualizer and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a much different skill to actually be able to then take that design and apply it, right? So that's kind of where my role steps in, and I help you implement that and learn those types of skills.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I have a twofold question.
Yeah.
Who is your target market? Is your ideal client a graphic designer?
Yes, correct. Yes, I'm looking for designers who are looking, or because I mean, obviously there's different types of graphic designers. Like if you're a branding type of designer, unless you're getting something produced, that might not be the right designer for me. But I'm looking for designers who, at the end of the day, will produce some kind of product. So whether that be venues like event planners or interior designers are a great example. Those are some of my best I have the most experience in, is producing stuff like wayfinding signage, which is like those washroom signs and stuff that you see, or directories in the buildings, and those such of things can be pretty challenging to produce. But those are the types of things that I have an extensive amount of experience on. So if a designer needs help with that type of thing, all the way down though to even stuff like getting stuff printed for brochures and business cards and where to find the resources for that as well, because I have a obviously pretty broad network as in the printing industry. So I know a lot of people as well. If I need to reach out to some of those individuals to help the designer get something like that produced. So yeah, so it's kind of a broad spectrum, really.
And the timing of your relationship with the graphic designer, you would want to be speaking about the project before they even start the design process. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's the best time to start. I obviously, I'm used to getting it at the very tail end when it's chaos.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
trying to avoid that. And that's part of my educational bender, if you will. I'm trying to get and educate designers to think about it from the start of the design.
That's right. Can you share who you would go to get some stuff printed when you're in Calgary?
Yeah, you bet. So as I said, I in your response, I'm very biased because I worked at a printing company for 8 years. Unfortunately, that printing company is no longer around. But I wanted to bring this up because I thought you might find this interesting. I know you just recently did a project with William Huff. I would also recommend William Huff with Calgary. They're actually one of my primary contacts right now and who I'm dealing with in helping produce stuff. The branch manager there, her name is Wanda Summerfield. I'll shout out her name. She just opened up the branch in Calgary very recently. William Huff had to expand from Edmonton to Calgary.
Yeah, they do a lot of the Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames and sports stuff.
I just helped them. I just helped them do fix up a file for one of the Zambonis at the Calgary.
So, yeah.
Nice. So that was pretty fun and cool. That was a very cool project. A lot of fun. Any of the viewers that are watching, if they're curious about this type of thing, definitely reach out to me. I don't know whether you have my contact info, but I can always send out a Calendly link, and feel free. It's obviously no obligation just to talk to me. I'm very open and want to share information, and as I said, I want to educate people. And I'd love that as an opportunity too, like in the newsletter, if I can share my wisdom and just get any new graphic designers or even established graphic designers who want help figuring that stuff out. I'm more than happy to help. Well, and I think that's one of the great things about like the technology that we have available to us now. Even though you're in Edmonton and I'm in Calgary, that's not that far, but it's far enough that if without these technologies, it would just make it much more difficult on a day-to-day basis to help each other, right? So I think that's super fantastic. Like I absolutely love it.
If Edmonton graphic designers are watching this and they're thinking, hey, I wonder if Andrew can help me. Does it matter where the job is getting printed? Can it?
No, not necessarily. So as I had mentioned to you, I try and work with their printers if they have a printer. So it could literally be anywhere in the world as long as they have a contact. And even if they don't necessarily have a contact, I would very much like to work locally close to them. There's a few advantages to it. Obviously, you're going to save on shipping if that's the case. And ultimately, you can then have a relationship with someone local to you. And even if that is not the case, then I still have enough network sources that I can get that product to you in that way. So there's lots of alternatives, but my first and foremost would definitely be to try and assist them to connect them to a printer close to them. Because not only that, but that gives them an opportunity for installation. Like I think that's another thing to keep in mind is that you have to have a local installer no matter what the case is. So usually printing companies have really solid foundations or relationships with other installers who can get the job done. So
well, thank you so much. And thank you, viewers, for watching. If you have any questions or if you have questions for Andrew, contact him personally. We'd like to know that these videos are valuable, and the only way we'll know that is if you comment and let us know.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Take care, Andrew. So there we have it, folks. We're going to be interviewing both graphic designers as well as business owners in the community. We want to know what the business community's needs are so that we as graphic designers can provide solutions. Please click the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.